Hello, welcome to the channel. If it's your first time here, a very warm welcome. And if you're one of my subscribers or returning viewer, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate all of your support. Well, this is another video about witchcraft, and this time in the United States, the Salem witchcraft trials. Now, I have two videos that came before this. The first one is about the purpose of religion, where I said religion was meant to meet psychological and spiritual needs of people. And the second one, I talked about how sometimes religions get off base and begin to do things that is definitely beyond the scope of meeting people's needs, but actually sometimes destroying people and huge groups of people, in fact. And that was when I talked about the European witch hunts. I'll put a link to both of those videos in the description box to this one. Well, just a quick review. In Europe, between 1400 to 1775, that is when the witchcraft trials were happening. And between America and Europe, about 100,000 people were persecuted for witchcraft. Most of them we saw were women, a few men, oftentimes elderly women, what were called the wise women, women who lived alone. Sometimes they were herbalists, often they were midwives, and the people just believed superstitiously in witchcraft. And they believed that when something happened that they couldn't understand, something, perhaps an unexpected death, a miscarriage or a stillborn baby, the illness of people or livestock, crop failures, accidents, they would, really be bewildered and confused and look for reasons these things might have happened. Now, we might know today, if we were in that situation, that the person had died of an undiagnosed disease, that accidents happen. We would have tests to know the health of a baby before it's born. We could even determine an illness that had gone undiagnosed in a person that was the cause of death. For a lot of these things, most of the time, we would be able to find natural reasons. But when you don't have any of that information available to you, and perhaps you've had a disagreement with one of these marginalized women, it was very easy to fall back on the superstition that he or she was a witch and had cast spells and had caused this problem. Now, I'm getting the information that I'm presenting about the Salem witch trials from the website history.com, and I'll leave a link to that site in the description box below. The infamous Salem witch trials began in the spring of 1692 after a group of young girls in Salem Village, Massachusetts, claimed to be possessed by the devil and accused several local women of witchcraft. So a wave of hysteria spread through colonial Massachusetts, and a special court convened in Salem to hear the cases. The first ones convicted as a witch was Bridget Bishop, and she was hanged for witchcraft. 18 others followed Bishop to Salem's, it became known as gallows Hill. And 150 more men, women, and children were accused over the next several months. Now, having heard about Salem witchcraft trials my whole life, and in fact, I don't live too far away from Salem, Massachusetts, here in New England, it gets so much publicity and so much has been written about it that you might think it was something that lasted a long time. But it began in June and pretty much by September had died down. So it was only a summer hysteria one year. And public opinion by September had turned against the trials. People even then realized that things had gotten out of hand. And the Massachusetts General Court later annulled guilty verdicts against the accused witches and granted indemnities to their families. Bitterness lingered in the community, and the painful legacy of the Salem witch trials still lingers today. Well, what could have caused these witch trials? And specifically, the belief here was that the devil could give certain humans, witches, the power to harm others in return for their loyalty. That had emerged in Europe earlier in the 14th century, and it was the widespread belief in New England at the time. In addition, the harsh realities of the Puritan community in Salem Village, Massachusetts at the time included the after effects of a British war with France in the colonies in 1689, just a few years before. And there had been a recent smallpox epidemic, and there were fears of being attacked by Native American tribes, and there was a rivalry between them and Salem town. Now, currently, Salem town is Salem, Massachusetts, and Salem Village is now a place called Danvers, Massachusetts. So the witch trials would be fueled by these tensions. I mean, these people had gone through a lot of horrendous and unexplained things. And so they were suspicious, they were resentful of their neighbors, and they were afraid of outsiders. I read an interesting book at one point, and in 1976, there was an article published in Science magazine that tried to give a scientific explanation of these people having fits and acting in such a strange way in Salem. And it cited the fungus ergot, which is found on rye, wheat, and barley and other cereals, which toxicologists say can cause symptoms such as delusions, vomiting, muscle spasms, the things that were happening to the children and others. That was put out that whenever there has been a mold infestation of barley in other areas, similar things, including witchcraft trials, have occurred. So you can kind of put that on the back burner and maybe do some research, see what you think about that. But anyway, in January of 1692, 9-year-old Betty Paris and 11-year-old Abigail Williams, who was the daughter of the daughter and the niece of Samuel Parris, who was the minister of the village. They began having fits, including violent contortions and uncontrollable outbursts of screaming, possibly screaming in fear of what was happening to them. After a local doctor, William Griggs, with a G, diagnosed bewitchment, other young girls in the community began to exhibit similar symptoms, and they included Ann Putnam Jr., Mercy Lewis, Elizabeth Hubbard, Mary Walcott, and Mary Warren. In late February, arrest warrants were issued for the Parris's Caribbean slave Tituba, along with 2 other women, a homeless beggar named Sarah Good, and the poor elderly Sarah Osborne. And the girls accused these women of bewitching them. Well, the 3 accused witches were brought before the magistrate and questioned. Their accusers appeared in the courtroom, having spasms, contortions, and screaming. Then Good and Osborne denied their guilt. The poor Caribbean slave confessed. She was probably trying to save herself from certain conviction by acting as an informer, and she said there were other witches, and she began to name names, and the hysteria spread through the community and the rest of Massachusetts, and lots of others were accused. 2 others were Martha Corey and Rebecca Nurse, both upstanding citizens in the community and the church, and even a 4-year-old child was accused of witchcraft. And these witches confessed and named others, and the trials they were overwhelming the justice system. So in May of 1692, the governor of Massachusetts ordered the establishment of a special court to hear and to decide about the witchcraft trials. The court handed down convictions against Bridget Bishop on June 2nd. She was hanged 8 days later on Gallows Hill. 5 more people were hanged in July, 5 in August, and 8 more in September. 7 other witches died in jail, and an elderly man named Giles Corey was pressed to death by stones after he refused to enter a plea. Coming to the rescue, to a certain extent, were the famous and respected minister Cotton Mather and his father, who urged that the standards for evidence for witchcraft must be equal to that of any other crime, because they were using things like dreams and visions as being evidence, and hearsay and unproven accusations. They said it would be better that 10 suspected witches may escape than 1 innocent person be condemned. So Governor Phipps dissolved the court and mandated that its successor disregard any evidence of dreams and visions. And the trials continued with dwindling intensity until 1693, and in May of that year, the governor pardoned and released all those in prison on witchcraft charges. In January 1697, the Massachusetts General Court declared a day of fasting for the tragedy of the Salem witch trials. The court later deemed the trials unlawful, and the leading justice, Samuel Sewell, publicly apologized for his role in the process. But the damage to the community lingered. Even after the Massachusetts colony passed legislation restoring the good names of the condemned, and providing financial restitution to their heirs in 1711. The legacy and the painful legacy of this actually endures until today. A memorial to the victims of the Salem witch trials was dedicated on August 5th, 1992. If you go to Salem today, it is a huge tourist attraction. Tell me in the comments, if you can, what you think about the witchcraft trials. And you might also want to check out my videos about the Cathars and the Waldensians, two other groups who the church attempted to eliminate. They did eliminate the Cathars. They did not eliminate the Waldensians, although they attempted to. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll join with me again next time where we look at another topic. Thanks for being here. I'll see you soon.